goal is to make sure that we get as many of your questions answered as possible, and that we are able to ensure that we have a conversation with our president, Madam President Coley, as well as our ASI President Greenberg, and that we ensure that we answer your questions as best we can. And if we cannot, we will be sure to follow with you. I want to formally introduce you to President Coley, who is the president of Cal Poly Pomona. The next person I will introduce to you is ASI President Greenberg. We're working on it. Next, we have two student moderators today, or excuse me, two student curators who will assist us in getting the appropriate questions to you. Vice President of ASI, Sindhu, as well as our ASI Attorney General, Tyler. Please welcome them. They're underneath the green awning.
Test, test, test. You got this.
Thank you. I feel like such a celebrity, all these mic changes, right? So maybe it's just me, maybe. Is it a me issue? Can you all hear?
Hello?
So we're gonna come over here again. Over here, over here again. I'm gonna take my cell phone. Let's see. All right, is that better? Oh no. Okay. We we will try to continue. Okay. Uh, our Cal Poly colleague. Let's take this. Okay. All right. Let's go. All righty. I'm not prepared to sing a solo today with the mic stand, but I am prepared to introduce our Cal Poly colleagues to your right and my left. And these are a number of administrative colleagues that may be able to answer your questions in addition to President Coley and President Greenberg. Just a couple of notes as it relates to the process and the ground rules. Please note that this event will be live streamed via Facebook as well as YouTube. We will receive questions from the curators, and I would read them to the presidents. If you decide that you want to come up for a live question, you will use this microphone, and we will ask that you try to be as concise as possible and step away from the mic once you finish your question. That way we'll be able to get as many questions in as possible. We have 3 question formats. I've mentioned one. One is some of you have already submitted cards up here. We also will have cards from social media, as well as the live questions. If you do a live question or a question on card, we ask that you provide your name and your major. It's left up to you as to how much information you provide with your name. First name is fine. If you prefer to use first name and surname, that's okay as well. We ask that you frame your question as quickly as possible and that you limit the question and answer to about 3 minutes or less. Okay, so let's get started with the first question. Okay, our first question is from Instagram. The first question is, will there be winter classes offered between fall and spring semester?
Let me first thank you for coming and participating in this activity. I'm all. Can you can you hold this next to me? I was gonna change it. Oh, okay. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you. First, let me just thank all of you for coming out and also sporting your Cal Poly Pomona paraphernalia. This is a day that we look in terms of being able to come and hear questions and get responses to the important issues. The question in terms of having classes during the 2 semesters, the intent is to offer that. I'm not sure that this January that we are set up for that, but I'm going to turn it over to our Associate Provost, Seth Escondera, and also have him identify if we know when those classes will be available for students.
Thank you, President Coley, and thank you for asking that question, whoever asked that question. For this coming winter session, so between our fall semester 2018 and spring semester 2019, we will not have a winter session. However, as we're planning for our next academic calendar, meaning academic calendar 2019-20, we are planning to have a winter session. It'll be a short session. Obviously, many campus constituents will have to look very carefully to make sure that the calendar is very carefully planned. It will have to go through our academic senate for adoption and ultimately, of course, to President Coley for approval.
Okay, as we are adjusting, we're going to adjust our format. So if you do have a live question, I will ask you to stand on either side of these chairs, on this side or this side, and we will ask you to come up and ask your question on the mic, okay? So our next question is from Twitter. How does accepting the largest incoming class in our history contributes to the graduation initiative 2025? Hashtag Ask Coley.
While we have the system-wide focus on Graduation Initiative 2025, one of our primary and core values is to remain accessible and create opportunities for students within our region and across the state. And so it just means that as we increase the enrollment, we also need to be mindful of classes that students need to take, the resources, the support that's available. And so we're very cognizant that with controlled growth, that we have to make sure that all of the services, the academic courses, the support structure is able to handle this. And so the larger issue is for us to, as I said, remain an accessible and create as many opportunities as we can for the students in our area and across the state.
Thank you, President Coley. Do we have anyone who wants to ask a live question? Yes, sir. Yeah, name, yes, name, major, year. And then a question. Yes.
Okay. Hi, I'm Andrew. I'm a third-year political science student, and my question for the president is, what do you plan on doing, or do you plan on increasing the amount of full-time teachers you guys have here, and decreasing the amount of adjunct faculty?
Let me say that as we move forward in the future, we will always have a balance of full-time tenure track faculty and tenured faculty, full-time lecturers, and part-time faculty. One of the things that I want to assume as an underlying issue is what is that mix? And we are working along with the provosts, the deans, and the current faculty to increase the number of tenured track faculty so that we can make sure that we have the right balance, the right mix. But as an institution, I think we benefit from a mix. We don't want it too out of balance, but I think oftentimes our adjunct faculty who are working in the field brings a unique perspective that's beneficial for students. And at the same time, we know the importance of having full-time faculty available and accessible to our students, and it's part of the overall shared governance commitment that we have here at Cal Poly Pomona. There's a fellow president standing up here with me as well, so I want to make sure you have some questions for President Greenberg, but I'm pleased to continue answering the questions that are being raised.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jenny Greenberg. I'm the ASI president. Just a comment on the adjunct versus tenured faculty. As students, at the end of every term, we always answer those surveys, the end of the course surveys, to give our feedback on the course and the professor. And if there are professors that you would like to see sticking around longer that you believe need to be tenured, those evaluations are the best place for you to leave those comments and let the university know who they should be keeping on and maybe when they need to refresh the faces a little bit.
Thank you, President Greenberg and President Coley. Next is a question from the CARS. I don't have any information other than I know that this is a student, but it was pre-filled out prior to the event. Is there any plans for the deconstruction of the CLA after the student service building is complete?
Let me say that with the construction of the CLA building, several years afterwards, it was recognized that the building is defective. In fact, I'm on the third floor of the CLA building, and there are 8 stories, and every time it rains in my office. And it is also on a seismic 1 fault line. And so plans were made years ago prior to my arrival to have the new building, the Student Services and Administration building, as a replacement for the CLA building. At the time, there were no funds allocated towards the destruction of the CLA building. However, we are looking at plans to shut the CLA building down. We need to understand what the cost will be. What the cost will be to do that. We're actually have a meeting scheduled in the next 3 or 4 weeks with the CSU System-Wide Seismic Review Committee to help provide us with some guidance in terms of the cost for what it would take to really make that building habitable versus whether or not the trade-offs of tearing the building down. But that would be sometime in the future, and we'll certainly keep you updated as we look at the continuation of the CLA building. Let me also say that about 2 or 3 years ago, you may be familiar with the name of Bob Suzuki, who was the president prior to Mike Ortiz. And there is around the CLA building a beautiful Japanese garden. What we have committed to doing, in my conversations with Dr. Suzuki, is that we will, in case if we do tear the CLA building down, we will encase or kind of a semicircle around the garden, because it's such a beautiful setting and we don't want to lose that. So we will certainly, as I said, keep you abreast of any further developments.
Our next question will come as a live question.
Yeah, I brought back a
You're up. You're welcome.
Hi everybody, I'm Heaven Tucson, a fourth year agricultural science major. And my question is, why are the beef, swine, sheep units not ADA accessible? Currently I have to walk on the street to get to class and cross streets illegally, and the road is dangerous because cars don't follow the speed limit.
I assume you're talking about on University Drive as you pass across. Yeah, that's an excellent question, and it is something I've certainly noticed, and I know as we are undertaking the campus master planning process, those are the kinds of issues that we need to surface and to try to find a intentional way of addressing that, because for students who are let's say if they're leaving the environmental design building and going to Temple, there just is not the kind of roadway, if you will, very narrow spaces in terms of walking. So it is on our radar screen, and we may need to do something in terms of forcing traffic to slow down. And this is particularly something that we're mindful of in the evenings, because when I drive around there, I'm very cognizant. So again, thank you for just putting that on our radar screen. It is already something that we are factoring into our campus master plan.
In terms of ADA accessibility, we are aware that there's a lot of different issues in some of our buildings around campus. In ASI's own building, the Bronco Student Center, we're aware that some of those areas, like doors and everything, are not quite accessible for different people with different abilities. So it's something that we are working towards trying to address. In our own facility, we will be having a renovation in the next few years. So it's going through planning like that. But as you or as any other students find these issues across campus that we may not be aware of, we really encourage you to bring it forward to us so that we can address it when it's discovered.
I'd rather not mess with these again.
Thank you.
It's not worth it.
This next question comes from Twitter, and it is addressed to
You guys
both
have more of
presidents. Because of the current state of parking, is the university
Well,
planning
then
to add more
just live
parking
with
within the
one
next
life
few
for now.
years to compensate for the increased acceptance rate of this year? Who wants to go first?
Let me just jump on into the pool. We understand that parking, particularly the beginning of the academic year, is challenging for people. We continue to look at this. I think when we've done the analysis in general, we say that we do have parking at the level in which we have enrollment. Now that has to be deconstructed, and we're continuing to look at that. One of the things that we have also put on the drawing board, but we haven't been able to go any further, is that as we leave and vacate the residence halls along University Drive, if there are resources that would allow us to then level those residence halls, because as you know, we'll be building new, I don't know if I'm looking in the right direction, we're building new residence halls, and because of the topography of where the residence halls are currently located, we cannot rebuild on that site. So that would, in fact, provide us ground level parking options, and that is something that we are taking a look at, but that is going to be a couple of years off in the future. I will ask, I know the chief has just been so excited about being able to talk about parking, so I'm going to ask the chief to come over, and he just has been waiting. He just cued me, and so thank you, chief.
Thank you, boss. How are you guys doing? Real quick, the explanation, the pink, support breast cancer awareness this entire month. You've got the fraternity, the sorority over there that's doing the same, so just be aware. You'll see other people like myself who are in the pink all over the place this month. When it comes to parking, yes, the long term, we're definitely referring back to the master plan, looking at possible solutions. Short term, one of the things we've done is we've added approximately 400 spaces over to the overflow lot 2. I know it's not the most convenient location, but what we've also done is added additional shuttles to shuttle you back from that location over to the campus. So we're doing everything we can in a short-term basis as we work with the master plan moving forward. Parking is, always one of those things where, it's always going to be on the radar, and, how do we deal with it? Along with parking, there's also traffic control. So we've actually, started doing a lot more traffic control. I hope you've all noticed that we're out there, even in the afternoons and the evenings and so forth, just trying to get vehicles onto the campus, off safely. So we're doing everything we can short-term as we balance that with the campus master plan moving forward.
So one of the issues with parking is also the fact that there's so many people with their individual vehicles here. So in ASI, starting in the past couple years, every year we've hosted something called an alternative transportation fair, where we encourage students, staff, and faculty to reduce their use of their own personal vehicles and find other ways of getting to campus, such as biking or carpooling or taking public transit. Not only will these reduce the flow of traffic and parking issues on campus, but it's a much more sustainable version of transporting yourself to campus. So before you think of, wow, I'm not going to be able to find a parking spot before my class, maybe think of where's the nearest bus station to my residence and how can I get to campus using that. A little bit of a perk to that is when you're sitting on the bus, you don't have to be the one driving, so you could potentially do some homework or studying on there as well. So maybe instead of thinking just about the negativities of parking, think about what you can do to improve yourself and the community and the environment around you as well.
There are two other points that I also want to add, that a couple of years ago, I think there was a preliminary survey conducted in terms of how students interface with the campus. One of the things that we learned from that survey is that a lot of times students would come to the campus and then immediately leave after their classes and go to work. And so what we've got to try to figure out, and we need to work with the Regional Transportation Authority as well as local government to try to see if there are other alternatives. We know that some students, in terms of riding the Metrolink, and we have shuttle buses that go to the stations. We also, for some of our staff, they participate in a van pool. And so there are a number of things that I think we need to focus on and really be imaginative about. Again, the campus master plan is helping us to even think about the flow of traffic and are there alternatives, as has been mentioned. So this is certainly, I think we can benefit. We have, in fact, one of our professors that is working with us around the whole parking distribution and so forth. So this is certainly something that we're very mindful of. One of the other interesting notes is that the number of students and the traffic in the first 2 weeks is extremely heavy. And then it seems to settle down by the third week. So we're trying now to figure out what is happening there, because it is there's a dynamic that really brings you to campus on the first week, but it's not clear how that gets distributed after the first week. So those are things we need to continue exploring.
All right. Well, I was going to say, I was going to introduce a blast from the past, the chord, right? On the microphone. We haven't seen that in a while. But I'm not able to brag on it anymore because it's not working. So let's take another live question. We have a gentleman over here in the hat. Come on up, and then we'll take another one. Are you ready to go after this gentleman? Okay, great.
Thank you. I think I speak for a portion of the student population here when I say that we have concerns or perhaps even feelings of disenfranchisement when we see spendings on the logo or the changes to the national colors. You are our president, and we look up to you as a representative of the student population. And when we see changes like this, that a portion of the student population doesn't condone or accept, I think a great number of us want to hear justification for it, and we want your opinion on that sort of thing.
Thank you, Trevor. That is certainly a question that has been on a lot of people's minds, and I want to try to provide a brief overview. We, as a precursor to doing a major campaign, if you think about the resources that are available to a university, they come from the general fund, from tuition, and also from private fundraising. And we had a very successful campaign about 6 or 7 years ago under Dr. Ortiz's leadership. And as we move forward towards a new campaign, what we recognized is that, and particularly as we went back into history and looked at Cal Poly Pomona, which in fact started as an extension campus of San Luis Obispo. And in our colors, this may be folklore or it may be real, that our colors of green and gold, in fact, emanated from John Deere. Now, many of you will not know John Deere. John Deere was a tractor company. It was part of the agrarian, the agricultural history of both San Luis Obispo, which also carried over as our first college here was the College of Agriculture. And so green and gold has been and will remain the colors, the anchor colors, if you will, for Cal Poly Pomona. But as we began to look at how do we differentiate ourselves, how do we really take hold of what it means to be a polytechnic university? And 2 years ago, the faculty under the leadership of the provost, vice president of academic affairs, engaged in a year-long process that resulted in the 8 elements of a polytechnic university. And those elements, in fact, have been rolled out in various settings, but there's a lot of focus now on what does that really mean. So those 8 elements were the basis for us transitioning into the shape of the octagon. And so, in fact, when you see, and I think Associate Provost Seth Ascendari has put a nice visual together. So the underlying premise for the whole branding initiative was to get us staged towards a national communication about Cal Poly Pomona that was based on the 8 elements of what it means to be a polytechnic university. We also had input from companies, from organizations, from alums, and what we were pleasantly pleased to hear is that there was a lot of respect for what we were doing here at Cal Poly, but in the grand scheme of things, they were always surprised at what we were doing because we did not have an effective communication strategy that went beyond the region. And so we are being very intentional and very bold about who we are, what we do here at Cal Poly Pomona, and the broader audience. And so this was wrapped underneath as part of the branding initiative. What we also recognize is that while those of us who attended fall conference, there was a big push to actually unfold it there. But we had a major misstep because we were gearing towards those who were in attendance at Cal Poly Pomona. I mean, those who were in attendance at the fall conference. But we did not, and we were not intentional, and that was the misstep in terms of how to bring the larger community into the fold to understand the assumptions, the thinking behind this, and why we were doing this. And so we have learned a wonderful lesson, and I think that our Strategic Communications Office has been working and trying to respond to the questions. Now, let me just say, there was this thought that I'm ready was our logo. Well, we talk about learn by doing, but let me just say, learn by doing is not the property of Cal Poly Pomona. In fact, I was sitting at the chancellor's office waiting to see the chancellor, and there was this big book, and it was titled Learn by Doing. So I opened it, and it was produced by San Luis Obispo. And we do not ever begrudge our grandparents. We came from Cal San Luis Obispo. We applaud them, but we can do things that they can't do. And so we are being very intentional about what we do and what we can't do. We are in a metropolitan area. We want to be able to play in the global context as well as be very clear. Nationally, there are only 11 polytechnic universities in the country. And so as we continue to make ourselves known, we needed to have a coordinated strategy, a coordinated communication plan that was not about recruiting students. This was really about positioning Cal Poly Pomona within the national landscape of higher education so that as we go out for campaign, as we go to foundations, as we go to donors, they are not saying, well, who are you and what do you do? I want to get back one final thing in terms of the logo. Our logo is, as I said, everyone uses the term learn by doing, and we'll continue to do that because that is part of the applied experience. But we have a much broader focus in terms of what we do academically and co-curricularly. I will say that there was another misstep, which was to think that I'm Ready was the logo. And I'm now dating myself in the sense that I have never seen a SpongeBob show. And so the connection between I'm Ready and SpongeBob was made by the generation that knows SpongeBob. I'm Ready was never intended to be a logo or a motto, rather. It was identified as we start advertising and as we're going out into the community, I'm Ready kept being the term that was reflected by companies and organizations about our students. That when they came into the work environment, that they were ready. So this was submerged under an advertising strategy that was being formulated. It was not to be the motto of Cal Poly Pomona. So I'm glad you, where are you? Yes, thank you. I'm glad you raised that, that question. And this is really about the long-term positioning of the university in the landscape of 3,000 higher education institutions. There are 30 universities within this general area, and we are very intentional about communicating and being clear about what we do very well, the excellence that is here, and this is part of the umbrella of that process.
There was one aspect of that question that you asked that I wanted to make sure got answered. The question about funding for all of the new branding and everything. This was something that President Coley had actually informed me of when we had the question as well. But I've heard different professors or students or anyone around campus yelling out different numbers or the sources of the funding for this. It did not come from student dollars at all. So when organizations or donors give large amounts of funding to our campus, there's a gift tax that goes on that. And any of the funding for this rebranding came from just the gift tax. So not any of the donations and not any student fees or tuition or anything. So I just wanted to make sure that you as students knew that that was where that was coming from.
I know that we are nearing the end, and so I just want to remind you, if we have the opportunity. Yes, if you will hold just one moment, I'll make this announcement, and then we'll get to you after we get to this young lady, okay? So I want you all to know that we are here to answer all questions. So the questions that you submitted to us earlier, we will respond to those questions that are in this box. And if we have contact information attached to the question, you will get a response outside of this forum for those questions. And so, sir, we'll get to you in just a moment. I promised this young lady here that we would get to her next. So if you want to come up, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alexis Orea, and I am a third-year marketing major. And before I state my question, let me just say that I am part of parent-friendly organizations and activities here on campus. So my question for you, either presidents, are there any future plans to provide more funding for student parents here on campus who are not just trying to graduate, but are also struggling to graduate and meet the needs of this university?
So in terms of helping serve our student parents, I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that there is a child care center on campus. It is something that's a partnership between both ASI and the university. And we have had a lot of students come in recently and ask us why that center isn't open later to help them when they're in their night classes. And unfortunately, it goes down to the funding for the Children's Center and having the ability to run it for so many hours. So we're really starting to look into seeing if there is a way that we can expand those services to cover the entire school day rather than just typical business hours. So that's something we're looking into right now already.
And thank you for that question, because just recently I read a study that as we focus on student success, that there's a differential sometimes outcome for parents. And it's not something that I don't know that we have taken a deep dive on, but it is something that we need to look at to see, are there factors that create different kinds of challenges than the ones that we are trying to address? And so I think that that's something that becomes part of our broad look at the different categories or the different profiles of our students. And so it is something that I appreciate your raising, and we'll certainly put on the radar screen as we look at this. I do know that with a couple of the students that I've talked to who are parents, in addition to the child care, it's just the hours of operation and being accessible during times that are more convenient for parents. And so those, plus I'm sure there are other issues that surface that may be unique to parents. So we'll certainly put that in the hopper as we try to continue addressing the needs of students.
Thank you. I believe there was a student who, if you would make your way up, please, and while you're making your way up, I will ask a question from Twitter. Are there any plans currently in the works towards providing better, healthier options to students of Cal Poly, such as vegan, vegetarian-friendly establishments?
So we have heard this as some feedback that students have been asking for a while as well, of getting healthier options. And that is something that the foundation has been working towards. In the Vista Market, a lot of their food has been changed towards healthier options. Los Olivos in the dining hall, there's more vegan options being available. And actually, at the start of this year, we opened up in the Bronco Student Center a new cafe, Saddles Cafe, which has, I believe they called it artesian paninis, and some of that food is food that's grown here on campus, some of it's brought in, but it's all trying to have a push towards serving the needs that we've heard. So if there's specific types of foods you think are not being offered that you need to be offered for your dietary restrictions, please let us know, and we can try and work with Foundation to see if there's any way we can make those accommodations.
As you probably know, we are also in the midst of building a new dining hall, and that dining hall will certainly have the vast array of food options for the entire campus community. So it is something that we consistently have heard and trying to address in multiple ways, and I think the new dining hall will continue to reflect that commitment as well.
Hi, whoa, that sounds super loud. Hi, I'm Taylor Riccardi. I'm a computer science student graduating, who knows, at this point. I have a couple, I mean that jokingly. I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask, 3 really. 2 of them are about the logo, and 1 of them is about the rumor about the students you brought in this year rising. My first one was, I think a lot of students are very disappointed that there wasn't more input from the general population of students here about the logo. It feels like it just kind of happened and there wasn't any input from us. If there was, I completely apologize, but if that's the case, I didn't hear anything about it as somebody who just goes to class and then lives on campus. So maybe there could have been better attempts to advertise it if there was. I just want a real assurance that no money that was spent on the logo could have come back to help us at all as as a student in my classes, for example, like improving the facilities we already have. And I think that's it. I think I asked my 3rd question first. Thank you.
I'm going to ask the StratCom AVP Tim Lynch to respond to that first question. But in terms of, in general, when we have a gift tax or donors provide support to the university, it is done in a way to turn it over to expand and extend our work towards cultivating support and donors and funding. And so there's always going to be a need for a balance and a mix of how we use the resources. But we did not want and did not use resources that are specifically targeted for the academic programs and specifically targeted for students and the student fees. But we have, with this vast array of a campus, we have a number of pressure points, and we'll continue to try to balance our use of funds as relates to us achieving our short and long-term goals. But I'm going to ask Tim to provide just a little brief overview of the engagement process. Let me just quickly say that there was a survey done, and the survey came back that there was a mix in terms of thinking about the logo and the motto, not about the one that we ended up with, but just in general. It's like 28% said they liked it, 28% said they didn't like it, and the balance were indifferent. So when you look at something like this, we did have campus engagement. This was over a period of time, but at some point you have to bring all of that together and go forward based on, for us, the underpinning of this was the academic mission and the 8 elements of the Polytechnic University. And what this is also suggesting to me is that as academic affairs, as the provost rolls out these 8 elements, we need to make sure that that is communicated as we operationalize that and what that means in terms of the value of the degree that you are attaining. And you said, I want to talk to you about your progress here, because it sounded like you'd been here. No, we're going to talk. It sounded like you'd been here for a little while, so we want to make sure we are serving you well. So, okay.
Teacher to ask a question. Tim Lynch, AVP for Strategic Communications and Marketing. I want to be mindful of the time right now. That doesn't mean I try to avoid the answer at all, but if any of you want to follow up afterward, I'll be sitting right over there. Glad to answer any follow-up questions you might have. As far as communicating the branding, it was the need for a new brand was communicated on several times, starting, gosh, when I came here 2 years ago. Could we have been more directed in our communications? Perhaps, but there were numerous messages that were going through a branding process. The process itself was a year long, and it did involve all constituencies at the university, including students, on a steering committee, and there were some working groups that also had some student involvement. Because it's an ongoing process, we didn't want to give a play-by-play because it was a moving target on where we were going with the logo, the seal, and other things. I do want to say that there's been expression for student voice in the process. There's one more group that's going to be meeting starting later this month or early next month, and that is on the advertising and marketing working group. And we absolutely guarantee that there'll be student representation on that, at least 2 students, as we move forward in sharing our great story. One of the things we learned in the branding, in the surveying, was kept hearing that we're the best kept secret, and that phrase just makes me sick. We're not going to be a secret anymore. We're going to tell our story very boldly. I also encourage you to look at our homepage this week and look at the video of Renford Reese, Professor Reese, about pride in this university. I encourage all of you to look at that. So, student representation on the Marketing and Advertising Committee. We did share the message. Could we have done it better? Mea culpa. Moving forward, we're going to have a great story to tell, and students will be part of sharing that, shaping that marketing and advertising.
The next question is for President Greenberg. How? Oh. Okay. So how can I, as a first year, get involved on campus and ASI?
Well, there's our president for you, everyone. So as a first year, how to get involved with ASI is our Secretary of Internal Affairs still here? She is. So this is actually a program that we started, that we'll be starting this year. And Jordan, can you raise your hand? So this is Jordan Dayer. She's our Secretary of Internal Affairs. She's the individual who will be running this program. But we have noticed that student involvement is somewhat limited in our leadership positions on campus because of the requirements by the university that they would have had to have been enrolled for previously 2 quarters, now 1 semester before they can hold a position. So we here in ASI have created a program called the Bronco Associated Student Experience Program, or the BASE program, which applications opened up on Friday on our ASI MyBar page. So if you are interested in trying to get involved with us in the leadership aspect through that lens, you can apply through that, and it's a way for you to kind of shadow some of our student leaders, work with them, and get experience and get engaged before you're technically eligible to hold one of those positions. And in terms of just general engagement across campus, we highly encourage you to join clubs, organizations, visit cultural centers and resource centers. These places are made to help support you and engage you, and we really do believe that getting engaged is the best way to make you a successful student. If you have any hobbies or professional goals or anything, there's most likely a club for it. There's most likely a professor or a staff member somewhere on campus who's interested in that. So if you aren't quite sure where to find the group that you'd like to get engaged with, you can always stop by our office. It's on the first floor of the Bronco Student Center across from Round Table. It's these big glass windows. You are at any time welcome to come in and talk to us, and we can try and help you find a place for you to get engaged. Base application closes October 15th. So go to our ASI Student Government MyBar page if you're interested in that.
Great, thank you. So as our time concludes, we have about 3.35 minutes. And I want to make sure we get at least one more live question in. I think you were next, right? So if you would come up, and then we have one more question from the card following. In the meantime, I want to thank all of you for being with us today. There are a number of questions that we know that we did not get to, but as promised, we will make sure we get to those questions if we have contact information. If there's someone who's here today who did not feel comfortable publicly asking your question, you may visit the Dean of Students office privately, and we will make sure to take your question and get it to the correct person. The Dean of Students office is located, and please help me if I get this wrong, at 110, I call it the old horse stables, because I said horse stables last week and someone thought we were across campus at the actual horse stables, right? So that's where we're located. So if you have more of a private question or don't feel comfortable sharing in public, that is a place you can come to ask your questions, okay? All righty, you're up next.
I'm Daniel. I'm a second year, and I was wondering if you guys could make signing up for classes make sense, because I signed up for Math 2250, which has 1160 as a prereq, which has 1150 as a prereq, which has 1140 as a prereq, but apparently I didn't have credit for 1140 because they didn't let me sign up for Physics 1510, and why? I had to go through like 3 days of just like going to the physics office for like 6 hours just to get into a class that I should have been able to get into in the first place. And also, is there any more pizza? Because like I decided to stand in that line and not that line, so I don't think there's any left, and I'm sad about it. Also hungry.
Well, it's okay. I'll make a promise. If you don't get pizza, we'll get you some pizza from the Student Center. We'll get it to you. All righty.
Yeah, we'll, just for your going to the physics office and having to deal with this, you deserve pizza. So we'll get you I'll actually buy you a whole pizza. So, but let me just say that as you may or may not recall, particularly for the first time students, we moved from quarters to semester. And if you can imagine 3,000 courses, 20-some thousand students, and trying to get all of that programmed. We understand that there were some issues related to prerequisites, and so I understand that those things have been addressed, and I'm regret that you had that kind of inconvenience. I know that there were some other students where this issue occurred. All in all, the university did a tremendous job of trying to move 20-some thousand students into a new environment, and there were a couple of what I call oops. But there were no, as I understand it, oh my goshes. Now, it might have been oh my gosh for the individual, but in terms of institutionally, it was just a tremendous amount of effort. So I hope you've gotten that squared away. If not, we have someone here who can work with you. We also expect that next semester, with any students who are coming in mid-semester, that hopefully that has been addressed. But let's make sure that we understand the particular issues that you face, so that we can confirm that other students who may be in a similar situation will not have to deal with that. But thank you for letting us know. So would you come, after this, you come up, please, so that we can make sure that we have your information and we can research and know exactly what may have happened, okay? And get your money for your pizza. Okay.
Another place that you can try and go on campus is the Bronco Advising Center. It's really trying to become a one-stop place to help students with enrollment or advising issues. So before bouncing around everywhere, maybe try stopping by them. They're on the second floor? They're on the second floor of the CLA, right next to the registrar's office. So they're supposed to be there to help you with any issues like that. And they will be moving to the new Student Services building when that opens as well. So they're definitely a great resource for you.
Okay. We'll end with a question for both presidents. What's the best part of being the university president, and what's the best part of the ASI president?
I get asked this a lot, and I'm never quite sure how to answer it. To me, I think the best part is helping other students or my other student leaders figure out problems and helping them be the ones to work through it. I know everywhere we go there's going to be issues and concerns about trivial things or about very, very important things, and some people's lives can be impacted, but I really like getting to see the change that we can make. And just throwing it out there, there are options for students to get involved with these decision-making groups and these committees on campus. And if you're ever interested or curious about getting involved with those types of things, you can come talk to us. As a ASI president, I do have the ability to help get students onto these university-wide committees. So if you want to be part of that change, please come talk to us and we can work on that together.
I think the best part for me is the inspiration that I derived from engaging and knowing the impact that the faculty and staff have on our students' future. This is something that is a tremendous, both has immediate and short-term benefit and recognition, but it also has the long-term impact and the contribution that we make towards social mobility and the expansion and the growth in our communities. And so I think certainly I'm inspired every day about what we do here at Cal Poly Pomona working together.
So that concludes Pizza with the Presidents. I do want to acknowledge before we end this afternoon with some folk that I missed early on. We have a number of colleagues around the perimeter here and in seats that are also part of the Cal Poly Pomona community, so we want to acknowledge them. Thank you to all of you. We also would like to thank our media services crew for pulling this all together, both in film and audio. We'd like to thank our student curators who pulled the questions together today for us. And most of all, we'd like to thank you, students. We thank you for choosing Cal Poly Pomona. We are here to support you, and you must know that at all times. Again, I will mention to you all if you have additional questions. We have Marla here. If there's a burning question and you just need an answer right away, she will take that question and we'll get back to you pretty immediately. Otherwise, we'll get back to you with any other questions that you may have dropped in the box or questions that you provided on social media. Thank you, presidents. I think we are in good order, and I think the stars have aligned, so thank you all very much. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks again. Great job.
I'm Marie. I'm a fellow at the
He said, we are in good order and the stars have aligned.
All right, absolutely.
Let the church say amen.
Check, check, check. Test. Do you see anything bouncing? Emron, you got anything?
That was crazy. But that was good.
Here, Josh, why don't you put the headphones on over there? Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. Does it bad or good? Testing 1, 2, 3. Check 1, 2, 3. So no garble now? Okay, you're gonna give me thumbs up or thumbs down.
1, 2, test, test,
4 is
test.
good.
Okay, this one's good.
Terry. Let me Ben. Thank you, Ben. Sorry about that.